Now let's talk about some of the pitfalls of using shape tweens. If you're following along, I'm in 05_pitfalls.fla in the Chapter 5 folder in the Exercise Files folder. Let's take a look at some of the artwork on the screen in this file. There's one layer called Shape. On the first frame is a circle, and if we move the playhead to the last frame, there's a square. So let's say we wanted to create a shape tween out of this circle and square. Click in between the two keyframes, and then in the Property Inspector, set the tween type to Shape. Notice that instead of seeing the tween in action, the circle disappears. And instead of seeing the arrow in the timeline, we see a broken line. A broken line in the timeline indicates that a tween is not working properly, or that one of the rules of a tween has not been followed. Before we find out which rule was broken in this example, let's talk about the shape tweening rules again. Rule number 1, you have to use shapes. Rule number 2 is that you need to create starting and ending keyframes. Let's take a look at frame 15. Select the square in the stage to confirm that it's a shape. Sure enough, in the Property Inspector, it's a shape. Now, of course, this is also acceptable if we were to use drawing objects or primitives, but it does have to be a basic shape. Let's go to frame 1 and take a look at what's on the stage. It looks like there's a rectangle around the circle. That means it's a special type of object. Let's select the circle on the stage, and we can see that it's a group. Here is where we have disobeyed the shape tween rules. You cannot use a group to create a shape tween. Even though this is a circle, so it is a shape, because the circle is grouped, we can't perform a shape tween. Now let's ungroup the circle on the stage and see if the shape tween works. Choose Modify, Ungroup, or use the keyboard shortcut Shift-Command-G on the Mac, Shift-Control-G on the PC. When we ungroup the object, you can see in the Property Inspector that it's a shape. I'm going to deselect everything by clicking in the pasteboard or the gray area off the stage, and notice that the timeline updates to show an arrow with a green background. Now let's test the movie to see if it works all right. Command-Return on the Mac, Control-Enter on the PC. And the circle turns into a square. Let's close the preview window. And so that's an example of one of the pitfalls when you're working with shape tweens. If you disobey any of the shape tween rules, for example, if you use a group or a symbol, we'll talk about symbols a little bit more later on, the shape tween will not work. You need to use a basic shape in both keyframes. If a shape in one of the keyframes is in a group, you can simply ungroup that shape to make the shape tween work. And there's a look at some of the pitfalls of shape tweening.